Hello and welcome to this demo on fine-tuning selectors with variables. In this demo, we'll focus on generating dynamic selectors using variables to correctly identify the UI elements in an application. For this demo, we'll consider a scenario where our robot will collect the data from an Excel file and then enter it in the UI demo application. For each entry, the robot must select one of the 3 radio buttons depending on the value in the Use Cache Count column. Note that the Excel file, the UI demo application, and the credentials to access the UI demo application are available under the Resources folder in the project file that you've downloaded. Let's begin. We already have a blank process created. The first part of the process consists of reading the information in the Excel file. To do so, let's add a read range activity. What will a read range activity do in our situation? It reads value from our Excel file into a data table. Coming back, we'll browse for the file and clear the range field to read the entire sheet. Let's store the collected data in a variable called input data with a prefix dt in the data table field. The second part of the process is to enter the data stored in the data table in the UI demo application. So we'll use an attach window activity and indicate the UI demo application. Since we want to repeat a series of operations for each process row in the data table, our next step is to add a for each row activity. Here, we'll use current row variable as an iterator that reads each row from our data table dt_input data. To be able to select one of the 3 radio buttons, we must enable the Use Cache Count option. So we'll add a check activity and indicate the Use Cache Count checkbox. Next, the robot needs to select the radio button based on the value indicated in the spreadsheet. Can you recall the activity that helps to set values to variables? Yes, you're right, we'll use an assign activity. In the To field, we'll create a new variable called count option by pressing Ctrl+K. This variable stores the value of the radio button that we need to select. In the value field, let's add an expression that extracts the value from a data table cell that belongs to Use Cache Count column and converts the value to string. So we just retrieved the value of the radio button that we need to select. Now let's select the radio button using one more check activity and indicate one of the items, say Use Amount, from the Use Cache Count section. Now let's look at the selector and adjust some attributes to make sure that any of the 3 radio buttons can be checked at runtime, depending on the value extracted from the data table cell. The name attribute indicates a specific radio button. It's also the only attribute whose value must change to point to one of the other 2 buttons. To verify that the correct option gets checked at runtime, we can replace the hard-coded attribute value with the count option variable. At runtime, the variable will hold the correct value for each iteration. To use the variable, select the Use Amount text, right-click and choose Use Variable. We'll choose the Count option from the drop-down for the variable name field. Click Confirm to use the variable and OK to save the changes. This method is called Nicer Variable Support. Now that we've set the name attribute value to a variable, our selector is dynamic. As a result, it can uniquely identify a UI element at runtime according to the value of the variable. The third part of the process is that we need to type the values into the 3 fields, namely Cache In, On Us Check, and Not On Us Check, and then click Accept. Let's add the first Type Into activity for the Cache In field. In the text field of this activity, we'll enter the expression to retrieve the value from the cache in column and convert it to string. Next, we'll indicate the cache in element. Now let's repeat the steps for the second and third type into activities. The only difference being that we're indicating the on us check and not on us check fields, and we're getting the data from their respective columns. The last part of the process is to click the Accept button. So let's add a click activity and indicate the button. Before running the workflow, let's remember some of the best practices related to Studio projects. Whenever the application allows it, use Simulate Click or Type. Let's now check this option for all of our UI automation input activities. We'll also rename the activities. Let's make sure to close the Excel file and deselect the checkbox in the UI demo application. OK, let's run our workflow. The values in the 3 fields and the selected checkbox are changing. And it's done. A quick recap. In this demo, we created a selector that contains a variable, namely count option, which stores a value extracted from an Excel file and enables the selection of the corresponding checkbox. Now try to identify other use cases where variables can be used to make the selectors correctly recognize UI elements. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Until then, happy automation!